Hi, I'm Michelle Chalfant, psychotherapist, holistic life coach, and human just like you, learning to navigate life's challenges. With over 25 years experience, I teach people how to get healthy using the adult chair model. The adult chair model is where simple psychology meets grounded spirituality, and it teaches us how to become healthy adults. From anxiety and depression to codependency and relationship issues, you can use the adult chair for just about anything. Each week, I share practical tips, tools, and advice from myself and a wide range of experts on how to get unstuck, how to live authentically, and how to truly love yourself, all while sitting in your adult chair. Welcome to the Adult Chair Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Adult Chair Podcast. I am Michelle Chalfant, where we talk all about how do you become the healthiest human you can be. I mean, emotionally healthy. We sometimes talk about physical, but this is mostly about emotional health. And by the way, we're not great at it, which is what this podcast is all about. So I'm so happy to have you here. We have a phenomenal guest on today. This is another soul sister of mine. After I chatted with her, I was like, I love this woman. Adele Spraggon is on today. We're talking about, are you ready? I wish I had a drum roll. How we change negative patterns or programs in the brain. Yeah. Yes, indeed. I was so excited about this show. This woman speaks our adult chair language, you guys. Like, she knows her stuff. She's a brain expert. And she's going to talk to us today about how we change these programs. It's so cool. You're going to love this show. On this final day of September 30th, I just want to remind you, next month, which is October, the whole month of October, I am talking with you and teaching people how to find and use their voices. Yeah. How do we connect to the inner self and then speak our truth, set our boundaries, find vulnerability, all of these beautiful things that happen with our voice. I'm teaching you. I'm talking with you about it. We're doing a live Q&A. Everything is in the membership. Starts tomorrow, October 1st. If you're hearing this and you're a week in or 3 weeks into October, everything is recorded. Come join us. You are not going to want to miss this month. Let me just tell you, it's a phenomenal month. That's at theadultchair.com/membership to learn how to find and use your voice. Yes. All right, here we go. I'm going to jump right in with Adele. Let me tell you a little bit about her. She's an award-winning author, a thought leader, and an international speaker and trainer. She's been awarded the 2020 Women of Inspiration Award, and in 2021, she was recognized as the top behavioral change expert of the year. Her book, Shift: 4 Steps to Personal Empowerment, has won 3 awards and is sweeping the globe, transforming how people are setting and achieving their goals. After decades of feeling stuck in patterns of procrastination, avoidance, and quitting, all of which had her living her life below her fullest potential, she is here. She has created the most phenomenal technique. It's called the 4-step repatterning technique. You guys, such a brilliant show. We talk about everything from how you overcome procrastination, how we kiss our anxiety goodbye, how our brain is making decisions on our behalf, and how to change our underlying decision-making patterns so you can achieve any goal that you set for yourself. There's a huge power in the brain. Adele goes over all of this with us today. I'm going to jump right in. Here we go with Adele Spraggon. Welcome to the Adult Chair Podcast, Adele Spraggon. It's so nice to have you.
Thank you, Michelle. Happy to be here.
I was going to leave it at just Adele and have you break out in song. Have you seen? I debated if you noticed the pause. I was like, do I just say Adele and let you just start singing the song Hello? That would have been really good.
Yeah, I said to Michelle, don't have me sing on air. Everybody would just turn off. If that would be it.
That would be pretty cool. Okay. So excited to have you on. We were just talking before we started here. You are, I'm going to say the whole entire, I was like, what title? What is your title? This is Adele. She is a top behavioral change expert, or she was the top behavioral change expert in 2021 voted. That's incredible. Of the year. Like, hello, that's awesome. I'm going to also call you a brain expert. So we're doing a lot in this show today. I can already feel the energy here. I'm like, oh, here we go. I'm excited. So I love to hear stories of your life story, of how, like, what happened in your life to then help you to become the person you are today, and to develop this beautiful model and then write this book, etc.
Yeah, great question, Michelle. So I was a coach at a lead top development company in the industry. I won't name it. And I did that for about 15 years. I got into the world of personal development at about the age of 24, just saying how old I am in this story. And, I was coaching using all the traditional methods for mindset. So, I would teach people how to flip a negative thought into a positive one, and how to push past using resilience, and how to break out of their comfort zone and just use courage and keep going. The problem was, Michelle, I kept quitting. I wanted my own business. In my core, I was an entrepreneur, and I really wanted my own entrepreneurial venture. And I started 3 of them. And then I ended up quitting 3 of them, one after another. And it didn't matter how much affirmations I did, how much positive thinking I did, how much journaling I did. Nothing broke me out of this pattern. So at the age of 40, I thought to myself, maybe we're missing something. Like maybe humanity itself is missing something, and that we're using the wrong operating instructions. So I took myself to university. I got my master's, and I studied, how does this human mind of ours make decisions? How do we think? How do we do life? And what I discovered was, sure enough, we're using the wrong operating instructions. Sure enough, how we are taught to change behaviors is not effective. And what we need to do is deal with our brain's patterning instead of the actions that we're taking, or the beliefs that we're holding, or the behaviors we're adopting. So most people work on their actions, their behaviors, their beliefs. And frankly, all of that is an afterthought, because when we know how the brain works, these beliefs, these actions, they're originating in the deep unconscious regions of our brain, and we need to start there.
You're speaking my love language, Adele.
Brilliant. I love
this. I love it. Keep going. I love it.
Yeah. So neuroscience, it's only been in the last 20 years. Neuroscience is just brain research, fancy term for it. And it's only been in about the last 20, 25 years that we've really had the modern brain scanners to peek behind this skull of ours and understand what was going on in the brain in a non-invasive way. So up until then, we really had to study the human brain, or the human condition, we'll call it, based on observation, and not based on the subjective occurrence which was happening inside the skull. But here's the thing you want to think about. Our skull, our brain, I should say, is locked inside this dark, silent room. There's no sight in here. There's no smell in here. There's no sound, there's no taste, there's no touch. All of this brain has to go on is these electrical impulses, which are flying down these channels really super rapidly, and delivering an impression of what is going on out there in the world based on our sense data. So knowing that, we can say that between us and our situations, there lives an interpreter. And that interpreter is our brain. And frankly, a lot of times we get it wrong. A lot of times that brain is delivering misinformation about what's going on in the outside world and in our situations based on what it's already learned in its past. It's doing its best, but those patterns that we created in our childhood continue to run the show. And oftentimes they are utterly illogical, and they have a lot of stuff wrong.
Yes. 100% agree with that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we create this roadmap from 0 to 6 that we're living on as adults. Yeah, and I know that blows people's minds. It's like, yeah, it needs to be updated. We got to update these programs. So.
Okay. Exactly. So when I went to back to study the brain, and when I started university to study the brain, and I came away with these new operating instructions, and I got it. I went, oh my gosh, we are working on the wrong thing. Mindset is not about how you think. In fact, thought is writing in on the back of the pattern. Mindset originates in the unconscious patterning of the brain. And if we're going to change our mindset, we've got to start there.
Okay. How do we do that, Adele?
Great question. Well, let's back
I'm
up
like,
a minute.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's back up a minute, and I'd like to compare the old operating instructions to what I say is the new operating instructions. That's probably the best place to start.
Perfect.
So the old operating instructions, everybody's going to recognize these. Set a goal. Determine the steps to get to that goal. If you don't know those steps to take, find somebody who does, a mentor, a teacher, a coach. Follow their instructions. If you're still not taking those steps, something's off with your mindset, change that. Then there is absolutely no reason why you should not get to that goal. So if you're still not getting there, there's something wrong. Typically, something is wrong with you. Quit that goal, start again. This is how I ended up quitting 3 businesses, one after another.
Wow.
I just could not follow the instructions that people were giving me. And I literally would hit a roadblock. In my case, it was like boredom just came over me, and it just filtered into every pore of my being. And it was just like, no, I can't move forward. And people would be saying, well, what's wrong with you? Just do it. I can't. I just can't. And I just couldn't. Okay.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure out why. So those are the old operating instructions.
Sure.
Let's go to the new operating instructions to see how this works. Yes, we all need goals. Of course, you should have things that you want to accomplish in your life. But the next question is not, how do I get to that goal? Because let's think about this. If you could get to that goal, it would not be a goal. It would be something you've accomplished, correct?
True. Yeah,
so
that's true.
The mere fact that you have a goal set tells you that you don't have the brain patterns to take the steps to get to that goal. So the second question is not, how do I get there? Because you will not get there anyway. The second question is, why do I not have that goal today? Okay, now that's a really different question. What is in the way? What's in that gap? What am I doing or not doing? What am I thinking or not thinking? What am I believing or not believing that is preventing me from having that goal right now? Right? Now you're going to come up with these lists of actions, behaviors, beliefs that are in the way, that are between you and that goal. Perfect. Now, the next thing I need to tell you is that your brain is best thought of as an iceberg. And at the top of the water are all your actions, all your behaviors, all your beliefs. And we're going to put everything, all of them up there. Subconscious, conscious, unconscious. I don't care. Lives at the top of the water. Under the water is where those brain patterns are. So brain patterns are those neural pathways in your brain that just deliver particular actions. Okay. Shocking fact. Neuroscience has now determined that the action that you take has occurred in the unconscious regions of your brain a fraction of a second before you know you are going to take that action. Okay? If we could hook up somebody's brain to a brain scanner, the brain scanner would be able to know the exact next sentence I am going to say. And my brain scanner, okay, it's hooked up to my brain, would know the exact next sentence I am going to say before I do, before I think of saying those words. You want to know why your hand's in the cookie jar? Because you have a pattern that puts your hand in the cookie jar. Okay, so let's do away with all this blame, shame, and whose fault is it? And you shouldn't have done that. That's just crazy making when it comes to patterns. It's like the reason you do something is because patterns made you do it. That's it. Period. Yeah. All right. So
and the patterns that were set in childhood.
The patterns that, yes. So we need to get back to how your brain creates patterns in a second.
I was just going to say that. Yeah. I'm going to write that down and make sure we hit that.
Yeah. But the first thing we need to do is we need to think, okay, so I've got all these actions, behaviors, beliefs that I'm taking or not taking that are between me and that goal. If you know that those originate in patterns, then what do you think the next step will need to be?
If I know that they're originating in patterns, don't I have to just change the patterns?
Yeah, but let's start one step before you can change a pattern, right? So you got a neural pathway in your brain that's taking a particular action. You need to remove that old one first.
Yes.
That's
I see what you're saying.
key,
Got it.
right?
Got it. You got to remove the old before you can put the new in. Got it.
You got it. Because if you just change patterns, right? You're changing to another pathway that already exists in your brain.
Yeah.
Well, that old pathway is still there. It's still going to interfere. It's still going to cause me to quit, right? Until I remove my pattern for quitting.
Okay.
So at that point, I literally stepped out of one identity in which quitting was a possibility in my life into another identity in which quitting just wasn't. It was that night and day.
Wow.
Okay. That is the power of our brain, because the thing that we need to know about our brain, if there's one thing we can say about it, and there is only one thing we can say about it, it is adaptability itself. That's it. We are not like other animals that are born instinctively knowing what to do. We have to learn everything. And that is both our power, and if we don't know how to work the brain, is our disadvantage. Because our brain is so always wanting to be upgraded. It is always wanting to try and align itself with what's going on in your present moment. But we are not taught how to work with our patterns. We are taught that you should take an action or be able to take an action when you don't have a pattern yet to take that action. That is what I teach.
Love that. So what did you do specifically? So you had 3 different careers, and then you said you changed a pattern. So how do you do something like that?
Yeah. So here I was limping along. I was reaching this stage in my life where I would just quit, turn tail, run, beating myself up, making myself wrong, doing what I've been taught to do. Gosh, Adele, what's wrong with you? And just push fast with courage and just do it, and on and on and on and on. Anyway, finally, when I woke up and went, wait a minute, this isn't me. There's something else going on here. I'm doing everything I've been told to do.
Right.
So what happened when I graduated from university, and I had all of this information, but I didn't yet understand about removing those old patterns. Even at the level of university, nobody was teaching it like that. They were just saying, okay, here's all these neural pathways. So what happened was I started to just journal. So what I'm about to say is going to sound a little woo-woo, and it isn't, because I'm going to teach you how to do this yourself. But what I did was,
we're very woo-woo here, Adele. It's
okay. That's good. That's good.
I am woo-woo as well. You can be as woo-woo as you want, honey. Let's go.
That's good to hear, because until we understand about this brain of ours, it does sound woo-woo. So we live in a very left brain world, and I'm going to come back to that in a minute.
Yeah.
But, so what happened was I started to write in my journal, and I started to ask, why? Why do I keep quitting? And that's all the question that I was asking. Well, the next thing that happened surprised me. My subconscious, my unconscious started writing the words on the page. And I found myself reading what was written there in my handwriting. And I found myself saying in that paper, Adele, I was talking to myself in words, Adele, the reason that you're quitting is not because you're quitting. It's because you have a pattern that quits. Well, at the time, I really didn't understand what it was saying. I mean, yes, I had learned about the brain, and all this information was in my unconscious, but I hadn't articulated it yet. And then it started to explain, look, you've got to remove that pattern. Until you remove that pattern, you will continue to quit. That is a neural pathway. And it started to explain exactly how to do that. So let's get to the instructions for how we are going to remove that pattern. And then I'm going to come back to what I was talking about in that journal, because there's something brilliant about our brain, our human brain, that most people are unaware of.
Ooh, okay.
So there were 4 steps, and I won't be able to teach these steps on the call. They take some time to learn them, but I will explain what they are. And then I'm going to go back to what happened in the journal. And then I'm going to go back to the 4 steps.
Okay.
So the first step is we have to identify a pattern. Now, a pattern, I'm just going to give the definition. It's an intertwined physical sensation, emotion, and thought. And the 3 aspects of our being come together. They result in a particular action, behavior, belief. So below the surface of the water, we can put those intertwined physical sensations, emotions, thoughts that run the show, that give the rise to what we do. Okay,
got it.
Perfect. So we're going to start by just identifying what's going on.
Okay.
The second step is to own it as a pattern. We are used to thinking that when we are in a situation that we're actually relating to seeing, tasting, touching, smelling the situation itself. We are not. As I was saying initially, what we are relating to is a pattern in our brain, a neural pathway. So we own it like that. I created that pattern. Yes, not on choice, like you're saying, Michelle. We created most of those patterns before 6, so we didn't choose to create them.
Right.
They are our creation, so we can empower ourselves by at least knowing where the source of our problem is. It's not out there, it's in our brain. Okay,
and it doesn't sound to me like it's an exercise of blame or shame. It's just owning it. It's very different. We talk a lot about that in the adult chair, Adele. Like you got to own your reality, own your story, own where you came from. And now we're going to add to that, own your patterns.
Own your pattern. Exactly.
Without judgment and shame. It just is. It just is. Who cares?
That's right. In fact, I always say there are no good or bad patterns. There are only patterns that work or patterns that don't work. Those are the only things that we care about. And if they don't work, it's just simply because they're obsolete, not because they're bad. It's created for an old situation, right? It's just no longer doing what you need it to do.
They served a purpose at some point in our lives,
Absolutely.
But we've outgrown them.
We've outgrown them and they're obsolete.
Yeah.
All right. Brilliant. So that's step 2. Step 1, identify. Step 2, own it. Step 3, we need to do something interesting. And likely your listeners are aware of this word. We need to surrender.
Yes.
Yes. You all okay?
Oh,
good.
yes,
We're
ma'am.
all on the same path. Brilliant. Why do we surrender? Because it is the only way to remove the pattern.
Yeah.
Inside surrendering, what happens inside the unconscious regions of the brain is the unconscious believes that this pattern that is running is correct and driving correct information. Okay. And it has no access to the actual situation it's in. I may have just lost you, so tell me if I have.
Say it again. Say it again.
So there's the actual situation that you're in right now.
Right.
Okay. But that actual situation is being overridden by the past situation when the pattern was first created. Okay. So let's give an example.
I was just going to ask you for one.
Okay. Okay. All right. So let's say that when you're 3 years old, this story is in my book, so if anybody wants to read it, let's say that you're 3 years old and you go to a department store with your father. And you're holding his hand and everything's great. And you walk through the doors and the store is big and there's music and, and you're all excited. And then you lose the hand of your father and you're spinning around in the middle of this store and you're freaking out as a little 3-year-old kid because you're going, oh my gosh, I'm lost and dad's not here. Blah, right? Okay. Dad comes running over, swoops you up. You think it's all forgotten. Okay,
moving on.
It isn't.
I was going to say moving on, but it's not.
No.
Yes.
Because inside your brain, you have now created a pattern for stressful situations, department stores, right? All of that stuff is now stored in the brain.
Yeah.
So now you're an adult. 30 odd years old, you walk into the store, it's Christmas time, there's music playing, this Christmas, you're a little stressed, you got a lot going on. You don't even notice this pattern is arising in you. But, you're looking for a particular, I think in the book, I said, you're looking for a tea kettle and you find the perfect one. The problem was there's none on the shelf and you've got to get somebody over to get one down from the upper shelf. And suddenly you're reacting. right? And you're running out of that store and you're angry and you're ticked off and it's like, what a stupid store. Why couldn't it and you're going, what the heck is going on, right?
Yeah.
Or you're not. You actually think that your reaction is logical because you're stressed and you make up some reason for it. But that's not what actually happened. That old past pattern got triggered. Okay. Now, in the situation, as I said, there's no logic in patterns, but patterns think that they're logical. So in that situation, it appears like, yeah, stressful time, Christmas, object that you need isn't on the shelf, have to call somebody over, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
It appears really logical. That's one reality, but that reality is given by an old created pattern.
Got it.
Then there's the other reality, which is just a tea kettle that wasn't on the shelf, right? Christmas music, lots of people. Yeah. That's the second reality. Okay. These are two different realities that are occurring at exactly the same time.
Got it. Now that makes sense. So something from the past is interfering with something going on in the moment.
In the moment. Right?
Got it.
And
thank you for the example.
Yeah. I mean, I know you mentioned that you wanted to talk about anxiety. So in the moment, there's hardly anything that is anxious creating. And I don't mean to dismiss anybody's situation. It's just that when you think about how much faculty an adult has, right? There's very little that we can't manage when we're actually present in the moment.
Yes.
But when those past patterns are interfering, then we become really anxious, depressed, all of those emotions start to flood into us. Okay, great. So the purpose of surrender is to allow your unconscious to see these two different realities arising at the same time. Because as soon as you allow your brain to see that, then the brain goes, oh, this pattern's obsolete. Oh, we need to remove that one and create a new one. And boom.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay. All right, great. And then the next step is to create that brand new pattern. That your brain does that automatically. It will just align a new pattern with the situation you're in. You will just be happily shopping for your tea kettle, singing along to the Christmas tunes as you pay for it. Right? Like
I love it.
Yeah, it's brilliant. You literally step out of one identity into another. That's how powerful it is. So
I love it. Something I say all the time, and anyone that listens to the show knows that I love triggers. Yeah. I love triggers because so much is revealed in a trigger. I want to know what is that unconscious programming that's popping up. And that's one beautiful way to find it. And the only way to change it is to go into it and not run from it, not blame anybody, not defend yourself, but to go into that. And this is exactly what I'm hearing you. I love this. It's perfect.
That's beautiful. I mean, that's what I always say too. I love suffering because as soon as I do, it's like, oh, wow, wonderful. I just found another pattern. I need
exactly. It's like, I want to find these things. And that's one beautiful way to find them. Is there another way to find them other than being triggered?
Set a goal. Set a goal bigger than you can do. You will immediately be faced with all of those things that are between you and that goal.
Oh, love it.
So there's two ways. Because you feel yucky.
I was going to say, you're failing at your goal. You feel yucky. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Or you're just not in action towards that goal.
I got it. Okay.
Okay. So sometimes you can feel great sitting on the couch eating bonbons, but but if you're not in action and you want to be, then that's a pattern that's in your way.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
And then if you're not successful at accomplishing your goals, same thing, you'd go into it. Same kind of thing though. Identify the pattern, own it, surrender, find a new pattern.
Same 4 steps. Exactly. It doesn't matter whether it's in suffering or whether it's because you're not taking action that you need to take. You always apply. It's always a brain pattern that's in the way. So you just apply the 4 steps, remove it, boom, you're off and running again.
So, question for you. How do you train your brain to overcome procrastination?
Yeah. So procrastination. Okay. You probably know this, Michelle, but I'm going to say it anyway. People don't procrastinate. We avoid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so what is it that we're actually avoiding? What we're avoiding is that yucky internal feeling that comes from doing the task at hand. That's what we're really avoiding. Right. If we know that, then we know, oh yeah, okay, I got a pattern that is making me feel this way. I got a pattern that is originating here in my chest, in my head, right? Wherever you feel that physically. The thought that goes along with it is, I'm going to be judged. I'm going to look stupid. I'm not going to be able to do it. I need more education, whatever that thought is, because the mind is great at spinning tails.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then you again, it's just, okay, I'm avoiding. I got a pattern. What is that pattern? Own it, surrender, create a new pattern. You'll stop that procrastinating real quick, because it's actually just avoiding that internal state.
I think about what you're making me, I have a memory of, you're making me think about a memory when I was just recent, like last week before I left. I was in Charleston for a week, but I was doing laundry, and what happened? Oh, I was doing laundry, and I had to bring the laundry basket back downstairs. And I'm like, oh, I don't feel like walking back downstairs.
Yeah, exactly.
But I find that I do that. Like, that is definitely a pattern for me. But what I like about what you're saying is, I really go after triggers. Like, for me, so much of what I talk about is triggers. Go in, get that pattern, go and get that pattern. But what I'm learning from you today is, it's so much more than being triggered. It's, what are all the roadblocks or stumbling blocks or speed bumps in our lives? And I'm thinking, like, yeah, it's like that little extra step. Like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to bring the laundry basket downstairs. I don't want to go print off this thing that I have to do for work, but I do it. But I do it with like, no, I don't want to do it. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and I like stomp my feet and I'll do it. And so there's something there.
Yeah. So there's just a pattern that is, and you know, we would be able to identify that with a little bit of digging, but you know, let's assume for a minute.
Can we do it?
Sure. It would actually take, I do what is called a deep dive call, where we look at a particular area of somebody's life, and we start at the surface, we start at the conscious level, because that's what the person knows. But then the unconscious is always trying to guide us deeper and deeper and deeper into what is actually going on, you know? So we couldn't, Michelle, we might assume, okay, we might be able to say, that's an intriguing pattern that you don't, it sounds like there's loose ends, right? It sounds like you leave loose ends and you don't want to finish tasks. Okay, perfect.
Yes, so I have in my office, I have lovely little piles of things that I need to file. Because I still print, so I have to file. So I have little cute piles on the floor in my office. And I'm like, and then I look at the piles, I get overwhelmed and I go, yeah, I'll do it tomorrow. And then it doesn't get done tomorrow. And then a year goes by and I go, well, those piles are still there in my corner of my office. But it's as you're saying all this, all these ideas are like coming up to my head, like, oh my gosh, you do that with the laundry sometimes, you do that in your office. So, okay. Yes.
Right. Exactly. So there's a pattern that doesn't want to complete things. And it sounds like it's a young pattern, like, you know, the way you were talking about it. It's like, I do it, but I do it because I have to do it. You know, it's almost as a kid, you were told you have to finish that. And so, so this would be in the deep dive. We would just keep looking deeper and deeper. Okay, where does that pattern originate? Now, as I say that, I want to be very careful here. We left a dangling loose end. So let's go back to that one. Okay. So the first dangling loose end we left here was that, where do patterns originate? So I'm going to go back and I'm going to talk about that. Okay. So the human brain is born, as I said, a blank slate. Okay. Other animals are born with instinct. They know exactly what to do. Humans are not like that. We are one of the only creatures on the planet that has to learn everything. So from the moment that you're born, your brain is very, very quickly piecing together actions, behaviors, beliefs by building neural pathways. So every new situation that a person is in, if they survive that situation, that simply means that they get to the next situation. Okay. That it forms a neural pathway in the brain that the brain says, okay, great. Now on, whenever I encounter that situation, I don't have to worry because I got something to use. I've got a neural pathway already that I know the action I'm going to take. Okay. So that's all that's happening. Okay. And the brain is a little bit, I like to say it's a little lazy. That's not true. It's fastest route to action. And the fastest route to action is an existing neural pathway.
Got it. Okay.
So as long as it's got a pathway to use, it will not reinvent the wheel, because it's all about your survival. And it knows that you survived the department store when you were 3 years old. So why would it change that pattern?
Right.
Even though it's no longer needed today.
Got it.
Okay. Having said that, a lot of personal development is about, let's find that originating incident in your past. You don't have to. Okay. The pattern is running here today. So, as I was talking to you, Michelle, about that hamper that's at the top of the stairs that you have to walk downstairs, some personal development people or some behavioral change experts would say, well, now what happened when in your past, do you ever remember leaving stuff around? How were you about putting away your toys? Okay, forget it. Too much analysis, too much work.
Yeah.
The pattern is running here now. You only have to identify the pattern here now. You don't have to worry about when it started.
Love it.
Okay. All right. So that's important to know, because a lot of people think, well, I can't remember my past. And that's true. Like, we can't remember everything.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people say that for sure.
And we don't have to. It's not important. As long as you know what's stopping you today, it's a pattern. We'll just deal with it as a pattern. And if you do know, great, then we'll, if you do have something in your past that stops you, like I had a lot of patterns in my past that created shame in me and stuff. Fantastic. Those are also patterns. Those two can be deconstructed and upgraded.
Perfect.
Okay.
Love it. Okay.
All right, cool. But that's how the deep dive would work. We would just keep looking. And eventually it all comes together like a massive puzzle piece. And it's like, oh, I get it. I see exactly why I'm leaving that hamper at the top of the stairs. And it's got nothing to do with the hamper, right? It's got to do with whatever it would have to do with.
That's really cool. I like that. I like what you said. There's an issue with not completing things.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. The reason I said it sounds young is just because of how you do it and force yourself to do it. It's because there was a controlling outside influence that said you have to, and that you're stuck with, and now you can't do it willingly.
It's funny.
You just do it reluctantly.
There's a memory I have of my parents saying, clean your plate when you're little. I'm like, I don't want to. Yeah. I don't want to. There it is.
There it is. Right
there it is. I'm like, I don't want to. I want to have some control over what I'm eating, and I don't want to. That's really interesting. I love it. And I love, I would use the word, and I want to know the difference from your perspective of surrendering versus acceptance. So number 3 is surrendering.
Question. I love that.
I told you, you're speaking my love language, Adele. I love this stuff. This is right down my alley here. Tell me the difference from your perspective.
Okay. To accept something implies that there's nothing you can do about it. Okay. Not a shake if I've just lost you, right?
Yeah.
There's an implication there that you just have to, all right, I can live with this. I have to accept it. No. Bull roar. You don't have to accept anything in your life. It's all patterns. It's patterns all the way down. If something isn't working, if you're suffering, you do not have to just accept something, but you do have to allow it. Now there's a difference there. Okay?
Yeah.
Especially when you think about how patterns are arising. What we are allowing is the patterns experience. That's very different from allowing the situation, accepting the situation. It's very different from an external focus. It's an internal allowing of what is occurring within you. So I like to say, when we work with patterns, there is no blame, there is no shame, there is nothing to fix. There is nothing ever broken. There is just a pattern that is obsolete that we can tease apart, and your brain will immediately create another one. Okay.
It's interesting that your brain, I just want to ask you this question. So when you find the pattern and you surrender to it, your brain automatically comes up with a new, more empowering pattern or program, whatever you want to call it, I guess.
Yeah. So remember I said there's something fascinating about the human brain that we're only just discovering. Okay. So we are really in the cutting edge here of neuroscience. And it is so exciting. It just lights me up every time. Okay. So you have 2 hemispheres, Everybody likely knows that, right? You have a
Mhm.
right hemisphere, a left hemisphere. Most people are taught that the left hemisphere is analytical, logical, and the right hemisphere, creative, imagination. No, forget it.
Mhm.
Debunked. Not
Okay.
true.
Okay.
Okay. Both of your hemispheres are needed for logic. Both of your hemispheres are
Mm.
needed for imagination.
Mhm.
Both of your hemispheres are needed for creativity, all of that stuff. So,
Mhm.
what is the difference? Because we do have two brains, not one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's the difference. Your left hemisphere's design is to narrowly focus in and to concentrate.
Okay.
Okay. Your right hemisphere's design is to drink in everything in the present moment.
Okay.
All right. Let's think about this for a moment. In this particular situation, you and I sitting here, there are two equally important things that our brains need to be doing at exactly the same time.
Mm-hmm.
One thing our brain needs to be doing is focusing in on what the other person is saying. All right.
Mm-hmm.
In order to do that, we need to use information from our past.
Mm.
I say
Mhm.
the word lamp, you need to form a concept of the word lamp in your head.
Right. Right.
To do that, you need to know what a lamp is. That is
Mhm.
knowledge from your past that you're using in the situation you're focusing in, and you're using everything that you know.
Mm-hmm.
Equally important is if there's a fire in the other room, you got to react and you got to know it's there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Equally important, if there's opportunity around you that is unexpected and surprising, you need to be able to know that it is there.
Mm-hmm.
These are two totally different tasks that your brain needs to do simultaneously. And it can't be flipping back and forth, going, okay, I'll concentrate now and then I'll drink in everything in a moment and then I'll come. No, right? Because
Right.
at that
Right.
point, you're dead. So forget that. Okay.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
all right. So how does nature do this? Well, brilliantly, she severs this brain of ours in two. She says, okay,
Mhm.
left hemisphere, you concentrate on what's going on in this moment. You focus in, you listen to every word, you use all of your past knowledge, right? And
Mhm.
okay, right brain, you drink in everything in the present moment.
Mm.
So, but in order for your right brain to do that, it cannot know anything from your past.
Your
Not
right
if I
brain.
just your
Yeah.
right brain. In order for your right brain to drink in everything that's in this moment, it must sacrifice everything that you already know from your past.
Okay. This is how we drive on the expressway for, an hour, and we say to ourselves, I don't remember driving. So
Yeah.
one part of the brain is driving,
Yeah.
and the other part of the brain is thinking about whatever, the people you're going to visit, the presentation you're going to give, you're taking in all the surroundings, right?
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So you're drinking in all this information through the right hemisphere. The right hemisphere is always on board. It's always present.
Okay.
Okay. Now, have you ever had an experience where you smell something and you're instantly thrown back in time to when you, okay, perfect. How does that happen? Well, what has happened is as your right hemisphere has been absorbing everything, all of that information is stored in the unconscious regions of the brain, in what I call the vast warehouse within.
Mm-hmm.
It's not in a way that we can access it through the left hemisphere. It's not in a way that the left hemisphere can say, on May 2002 at 12 o'clock, I was doing this, this, and this. No, but it's there in the fodder. It's there in the grist for the mill, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So here is your left hemisphere pulling a pattern from your past, relying on past information that is no longer in the present moment.
Okay.
And you remove that pattern. Now what happens? Well, your brain has to tap to the right.
Okay. That makes sense.
Okay.
In the present moment.
It has to look the present moment.
I got you now.
And know what to do to create a new pattern. Okay. This is brilliant, isn't it? I mean, I get so lit up by the human brain. It's just like, wow. So it taps to the right. It taps into using all of that past information that it's had, perfectly aligns with the present moment, and the action that you take is optimal.
Interesting.
Optimal. Okay. I don't say it's good. It's just totally optimal because it's aligned with what is going on.
Love that.
Isn't that
Love
cool?
that. That's so cool. Like this is just when you're talking, you're excited. I'm so excited. I'm like,
Oh,
I love
I
this
just get like,
stuff. Love this
the
stuff.
world needs to know this.
Yes,
Michelle.
they do. I'm so glad you're on today. This is awesome. Talk to us about, this is an issue so many people struggle with, money patterns.
Yeah, perfect.
How you can transform yours and increase wealth and prosperity. How can we change our money patterns?
Well, the first thing to know is that there are a lot. Okay, wait a minute. Let me back up a minute. What is money?
An energy?
A
currency?
Is it?
It's I don't know what else. What do you mean? What is money?
Exactly. It's nothing, is it? Right?
It's paper. It's a coin.
It's numbers on a page.
It's numbers on a paper. Say. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
However, everybody relates to money as a thing.
Yeah.
So to you, money is a thing, but what is that thing? Well, if we know that how the brain works, then money becomes a brain pattern. Does that make sense?
True.
So here you have a particular money situation, numbers on a page, we'll call it. But that it's not just numbers on a page. There is an emotional content in there. There is a physical reaction in there. There's a thought that goes along with that, right? And that is your money pattern. And if we can remember that, that can be upgraded. Because here's the thing. Everything about who a person is today is the result of every pattern that has brought them here. Okay?
Yeah.
Keep in mind that this brain is locked inside this bony skull. No access to the outside world. So not from a position of blame, just whoever this person is today is the result of all of the patterns from the past that have brought them to this situation. And so if money isn't working, knowing that money is a pattern is hugely empowering. It's like, oh, what might happen if I just got rid of that pattern? Well, your brain will do what it does best, and it will upgrade that pattern. Will you then be asking for the sale? Yeah. Will you then be asking for the raise? Yeah. Will you be
with confidence asking for that raise and valuing yourself and feeling empowered and all of that, just changing the program?
Yeah. You know, this will you be getting into debt? Likely not, right?
I love that. You're really just updating your hard drive in your brain. That's it.
Yeah.
Which is the brain.
Which is the brain. Exactly.
Yeah. And just like we update our cell phones and we have to update, it'll say, I just had mine pop up on my computer earlier. Update available. Would you like to do it now or later? Later. Yes. We need to do that with our brains.
Yes, exactly.
So how would someone know that they're having a money pattern issue?
If money does not work. So remember I said there's no good or bad patterns. There are only patterns that work and patterns that don't work.
So would you say if someone's suffering, like if someone can't afford something, or if someone is feeling less than when it comes to money, would all those be money patterns?
Well, the interesting thing about patterns, Michelle, is they do take a little sleuthing to understand. So, all right. The other thing, I love how deep and rich your questions are, because they're really amazing questions. Okay. So how do we understand money? If we can think of patterns at three different levels, let's think of patterns at the level of the individual, patterns at the level of group, and then patterns at the level of humanity. Okay. And all of these are just three concentric circles that expand out.
Okay.
So we are influenced by the patterns in our groups around us, by our humanity patterns, and those press in on the individual. And then our individual patterns also influence the groups that we're in. So we can go in and out.
Like
right?
That makes sense.
Exploring those patterns. Okay. Where do we position money patterns? Well, we can position them at all the different layers. There are humanities patterns for money. We all agree, and it's just an agreement, guys, that we are going to use this concept that we have called money globally to exchange goods around the world. That is at the level of humanity.
Yeah.
At the level of group in North America, we have a particular relationship to money, which is different from somebody in other countries. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody's growing up in South America, where I lived in Venezuela, they had a different relationship to money than we have, right? To us, money is very much about how much you are worth personally, individually,
True.
Right? As a person. Okay.
True.
They didn't have that. Money was a tool to people that I grew up with in Venezuela. It was a tool that they used, but it wasn't personal. It wasn't about them.
Yeah.
If they didn't have it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just different cultures have different relationships to money. Those are group patterns. So, you asked, how do you know if something doesn't work? Well, what we have to do when it comes to a concept called money is we need to ask, okay, am I being influenced by group patterns that don't work? And therefore I'm suffering? Or am my individual patterns not working? And that's a very different question, right?
Yeah.
So this is where, again, the deep dive comes in, because we need to look at all of these different layers. So, some people feel like I've got to get more money, and it's never enough, because it's not actually about the money. It's about their own identity. And they use money as a substitute for that. Well, that's a group pattern pushing down on them.
So true.
Oh, this is good. Without money, right? Yeah. Okay. But then other people are, it's not working because they don't see their own personal value, and therefore they won't ask for the sale or ask for the raise or know what their education is worth, know what they're bringing to the table, right?
So it's not even about money. It's about personal value, personal worth.
Right. In that case, right? Other people have money patterns that drive too much debt, or gambling patterns, right? What are they after? Well, if they're gambling, they're avoiding something. Again, those emotions, right? They're avoiding
they're avoiding emotions. Yeah.
So it gets complex. Like at this level, at the level of action, behavior, beliefs, it gets a little complicated. As soon as you dive under the water into the world of patterns, it gets very simple. It's like, this is how I feel, and this is where I feel it, and this is what I'm thinking, and that's a pattern. Awesome. I can own that, right?
I love that.
As soon as you dive down there, it gets really easy, but you do need to get through the layers to discover what the real issue is.
What the core issue is. What about, you talk about how the brain patterns cause conflicts in our relationships, and how you can transform your brain patterns and reduce the conflicts in your life. Talk about that just for a minute.
Oh yeah. I love working with couples, because it's so amazing to watch them go from having to figure out how to change the other person or how to communicate better, to just simply knowing that they have a pattern. So remember I said that everything that we believe is in our situation is given by a pattern. Our brain is locked inside this bony skull.
Yeah.
Okay. If I'm going to point at you, Michelle, most likely I would point out here, correct? And I would say, Michelle is over there. But that's not where I should be pointing. Where I need to be pointing is inside my own head. Okay? Because you are arising based on a pattern in my head. So in this way, I might be seeing you as bits of my aunt with parts of my mother thrown in, with bits of my cousin over here, right? And that is because I am not actually seeing you. What I'm seeing is a pattern that my brain has created for you.
Like a projection based on the pattern. Would you say it like that? Yeah. We don't want to complicate it, but
just like there's something between you and I, and that something is the pattern that our brain has created for the other person.
Got it.
Okay.
Got it.
So let's say that I get mad at you. Let's say that you do something and I'm arguing with you. Who am I really arguing with?
Right.
When we start to look at patterns, I see, oh, okay, hang on a minute. I don't know who Michelle is. All I know is that I have a pattern that is frustrating me, or that is ticking me off. Okay, fantastic. I can own that as my pattern. I can remove that. That will allow you to show up brand new in this space, right? Because I no longer have a pattern for you. So you're going to arise into the space. Now I have to get to know you again, right?
Yes.
Now, am I going to relate to you differently? Absolutely. Okay. And that's the power of working in relationship patterns, knowing that those are arising in the individual. We get to own everything, not from a position of blame, but just from a position of, I have a pattern that's ticking me off, and that's awesome. And I get to remove that. And now what happens? Right now, that can scare people, because people can start to think, but what if I'm in an abusive situation? Or what if that person really does need to get out of my life? Absolutely. But you know what? Your brand new pattern is going to take an optimal action. And if you do need to leave that relationship, you will leave, but without the blame and shame that typically goes along with it. Right. If the relationship is worth salvaging because you're pulling bits of your aunt, your mother, your blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
The new pattern that arises will be able to see the other person newly, and all of that old baggage goes away, and the relationship blossoms.
So you see them with fresh eyes.
Completely fresh eyes.
Completely fresh eyes.
The biggest gift you can give another person is allow that person to show up brand new every time you see them.
Ooh, I love that.
That's
powerful.
Most beautiful gift we can give each other.
Gosh, this is so good. Like learning this, I realize how, in your book, of course, 4 steps to personal empowerment. I'm like, this is empowering stuff.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I love it.
There's nothing that pattern makers can't do and accomplish. It's just remarkable. When I work with my participants,
seen this with people? So I wanted to ask you, like, you've seen people turn their relationships around, turn their money
6
around.
weeks.
Shut up.
Yeah. 6 weeks. When I work with couples, they go from being on the verge of divorce to being like newlyweds again within 6 weeks. It's just, when we know how our brain works, when we know how to work our brain, there is nothing that needs stop us.
Wow. You're going to get a lot of hits. I'm just letting you know right now. You're going to get a lot of people calling you or emailing you after this. Let me ask you, when you work with couples, do you work together with them, or do you work individually?
Yeah, so
how do you do
a
that?
lot of stuff. I work with it because I work with brain patterns. I can work with a lot of different people.
Got it.
So, people come to me with all different issues: money issues, personal empowerment issues, work issues, communication issues, leadership issues. And those we would work in a group setting. And everybody starts off with a list. They learn the 4 steps. They apply those 4 steps to those list of actions, behaviors, beliefs. At the end of 8 weeks, they're crossing all of those off, going, I don't know who wrote this. It wasn't me.
Get out.
No, I'm serious. It's that powerful.
That is so awesome. Yeah. Oh my God. I love it.
When I work with couples, it's a little longer because there's 2 of them, right? So they first have to learn the technique, and then they have to be repatterning each other inside that. So that I work with them over a 12-week window, and that is 2-on-1. That is not in a group.
Awesome. Do you ever work with anything like ADHD? I'm thinking of just brain people that have other brain issues. Do you ever do anything
have people who come to me with particular issues, which can be chemical. I never suggest that they get off any prescription drugs that have been assigned. I mean, those are absolutely essential. But what we can repattern in that case is the relationship to the ADHD, for example, right? Because most people come with a lot of ideas about what that means about them.
Yeah. Oh, and so, that's true.
Here's the thing. When you work with patterns, you not only allow the other person to show up brand new, you allow yourself to show up brand new.
So true.
Because you are a pattern inside your own brain, right?
And I would just wonder, because that there's such a power in our beliefs, a power in our beliefs. And if you can create some shift in the brain pattern, I would wonder, I don't know. I mean, I'm just curious if that would actually help something like an ADHD, or who knows? I mean,
well, I do have a few participants who have been diagnosed ADHD. I mean, certainly they no longer relate to themselves in that way anymore. I guess that's the best, most empowering thing to say. They just don't see it as, dare we say it, a dysfunction of any kind. It's just, my brain just operates this way.
And they're
okay with it.
And
again,
so cool.
It's not a matter of accepting. They just, they actually see the benefit of it and the opportunity in it. Whereas before it would have been a stigma. Then it's just, my brain.
So they've shifted how they see it. That's awesome too. Yeah. Cause I hear, cause I have had some clients with ADHD. I even have some ADHD. And but I remember working with some clients and they felt so badly, like they were broken and they were damaged and all this. I'm like, wow, hold on a second. Hold on. I like that you can find the blessings and the benefits from it. Just have that brain shift. It's another brain shift, Adele. I love it all.
Oh, yeah, because every brain is unique. I mean, you know, we can stick labels here, there, and everywhere, but honestly, every single brain on this planet to a different, varying degrees is unique. And when you just start to understand your brain and understand how you're functioning inside that brain, it's like, okay, this might be labeled ADHD, but
I personally cannot stand labels. I don't like labels because I think labels limit us as human beings into changing who we are, shifting our potential, you know, not reaching our potential because we feel like we're labeled now. We're not as good as others. I don't like labels because I really do believe every human being, if they choose to, has the ability to change. And maybe it just might be like you're saying, maybe a shift in your perspective, but there's no reason to feel terrible about ourselves. And I think labels do that with people. So not a fan of labels, Adele, not at all. Yeah. The last thing I wanted to ask you before we go is, what's the root cause for stress, anxiety, and overwhelm? And I know what you're going to say.
What am I going to say? Say it.
A brain pattern.
That and I'm going to add an and.
Okay. All right.
Yes, it is patterns all the way down. So yes, if somebody has a pattern for anxiety, it is, it is worth repatterning. Okay. Yeah. I had panic attacks for 10 years, every single day for 10 years. So
wow. And gone now.
Gone. Yeah, absolutely gone. So okay. So it's all patterns.
Yeah.
But how we are, because we are not taught this on this planet today, our left brain is becoming more and more anxious because let me tell you what's going on. The world is speeding up. So it used to be.
True.
It used to be 100 years ago, 200 years ago, you could create patterns in your childhood and the world was stable enough. Your day was stable enough that those patterns would continue to support you throughout adulthood. What is happening today is that the world is getting faster and faster and faster, and the changes coming at us are faster and faster and faster. And so what's happening is we need now to be upgrading those old patterns, but nobody has taught us how this brain works. So anxiety, fears are on the rise because the world is changing and we need to catch up. Okay. Wow. So yes, it's all patterns, but know why you're facing the fears and the anxieties that you're facing. Once you upgrade your brain, then your patterns will just align with what's going on in this moment, and you will be able to deal with it with resilience, with power, with everything you need. And believe me, you've got so many resources in there. Everybody who's listening, you have resources beyond your wildest imagination. You just have to let go of the old, and the new will take care of itself. Okay.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh. All right. So the biggest question, how can people find you?
Oh, go to my website. So adelespraggon.com, 2 G's. Okay.
I will put all this in the show notes.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. And if they want a copy of my book, you can either go to my website, they can get a copy there, or you can go to shift4steps.com. That's the number 4. Okay. That will be in the show notes too. And you can order a copy. All I ask is that you pay for shipping, and I will sign you an autographed copy. Wow. And you can start repatterning.
I want one of those, Adele, for
all
sure.
Right, cool.
I'm serious. I want to get one of those. This has just been brilliant. I am so grateful for the work you're doing. Thank you. It's needed. It's really needed. Yes. Yeah. Cutting edge. Love it. Thanks so much for joining us today on the Adult Chair podcast. We really are grateful for you.
Oh, thank you for having me.